Oh, hello there, Travis. What are we actually seeing starts to get complicated? It was easy. It will start to separate. Are definitely not behind that restricted access gate. They're not. Forget about it.
None of them will be able to be revived.
So please, be reasonable, returning to the orientation we usually the private traditional. A stabby, but I don't think. And those rectangular outcroppings weren't. Here is my Catwoman glove and glove. I should have a floating, impossible anti-gravity, blah, blah, blah. Now, if we were to take it, snapshots, eventually, how do you transmit a discrete shell?
Well, Aria, we've been tracking this thing for weeks and we still don't know what it is.
The basilisk has its eyes on you. What are you going to do? And at some point, the acceleration is going to get so high that you're going to pass 9.8 meters. Look, I know that neither of those examples were fun. A screaming fish on this side would never be fun, leaving me weightless no matter where I am. What the? We generate our heat endogenously or within our own bodies. I give killer high fives. Is it? That it? This story is only one of a dozen. Okay, good, because it's rock, paper, scissors. Where are you right now? Bam. The fingerling. That fingerling. Isn't that wild? Fingerling.
What's good coffee about? Oh, I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
No, yeah. No, it's in the news again. No, this time it's the Pentagon footage. Well, the New York Times just gets stuff sometimes. How do I know? Yeah, well, I mean, no, they don't suspect us at all. I mean, instantaneous acceleration and all that. I mean, there's only one person on the planet who has a ship that can do anything like that, and I'm sitting in it. They think it's what? The whole media thinks it's what? Okay, just a second. I gotta talk to some real nerds about it. Okay, love you, bye. What? No, you're not moving. Ooh, that thing lands fast. Whoa! Before we even get started, we'll get to you. Hello and welcome to Office Hours, a live component of the facility where good old Professor Kyle opens up his blast doors, as you just saw, to all my lovely facility staff and members of the general public, where you can ask me any old question about science, math, physics, aliens, all that kind of thing, and we'll be going through a number of topics as we're wont to do live on Office Hours, so get your questions ready. We'll be talking about aliens today, or not. UFOs is the better terminology. We'll also be talking about how to breathe through your butt. Yes, I know what I said. We'll be taking one of your comments or questions from the latest episode of the facility. And finally, if we get to it, we'll get to why social media needs to be burned to the ground. But before we get to all that, if you really, really, really want me to see something and you want to simp and support the facility and our work here, you can always use the super chats in YouTube. Look, I'm doing my very best to get to all of them. Can't promise I will, but if I don't get to it, it does go towards the facility and my security team. The security team is in the chat, so if you say anything weird about aliens that's not constructive, you're out of here. And if you want to continue on this conversation after we have it live for about an hour, you can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join the facility today. We have Santiago Ardia with a COP 20,000. Love, hey, Kyle, the show. I was watching some Star Wars and it got me thinking, what planetary conditions will lead to the development of green skin in animals, more specifically in human-like creatures? I would guess it depends on the dominant wavelengths of light and how it interacts with whatever skin those aliens have, because darker skin evolved and melanin evolved as a mechanism to prevent a lot of damage from ultraviolet radiation from the sun, especially around the equator, especially around the equator where the sun hits hardest. metaphorically speaking, so you would have some evolutionary pressure based on the wavelengths of the star, but specifically, I don't know. Sometimes it's good to say, you don't know. And we'll get to that when we start talking about aliens. We have Z with a $500 donation. Alien High. Alien High, how Kyle goes the hunt. What? Are you an alien? But really now, do we need any more proof other than you, Kyle? No way a human such has such magnificent hair at all times. I'm about to give you... you want to see proof? I'll show you proof. Or not. Of UFO aliens. Box Dodge with the Australian $10. Just wanted support. Gotta work in a bit. Well, I appreciate that, some boy. 20. Show Kyle. Love the high... Have I done anything on Elite Dangerous? If not, it's a massive game that really brought the scale of the galaxy into perspective for me. No, I have not. But I want to play Elite Dangerous in games like that. So, what you are seeing behind me is a still image from video footage that is circulating in the news again. Why is it circulating in the news again? Well, because of what just went through the United States government. The COVID relief bill that was passed last year had a provision in it demanding the release of all information the government had regarding UFOs and UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomena. And this footage causes a stir because it is somewhat compelling in that you have military-looking footage of a weird thing moving weirdly. And when you do look at the footage...
There's a whole fleet of them, look on that.
That's probably loud. When you do look at the footage, it's weird, right? It is. How is that thing moving? You're looking, you can see an IR, infrared. This is a video shot by an aircraft, military aircraft from a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, nuclear aircraft carrier. And you can see that these objects are moving either based on the perspective on the camera very, very quickly or very oddly, and they have an interesting shape to them. Now, all of this... Oh, look how it's moving. So weird. So fast. Can't track it. Now, the weirdness of these photos and that footage has led many people to say many interesting things in the media, specifically people like this guy. So this guy used to be a part of a government-funded program to look into UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, funded by the government. Sometimes there's weird stuff in the sky. Here's $1 million. Check it out. Oh, it's more than $1 million. But this guy was a part of that. Now, that research organization is no longer together, but now I think this guy himself personally leaked these videos to the New York Times. He thought it was so important for the public to see these videos that he took some personal stake in it and he decided to leak these videos. I am pointing out the background of this man for a very specific reason that I will get into in just a second. Okay. So first of all, there's a problem with the presentation of these videos, right? So we are already encountering some sort of bias. So when this is leaked to the media, when the media presents it as UFO disc shape isn't that weird, everyone knows what everyone is getting at. Everyone wants it to be aliens. And because it's moving weird, people throw out weird things like instantaneous acceleration, and it's floating, and you can't track it, and it's got stealth technology, and all of this. All of this is it's framing the conversation such that every little piece of evidence that we see or that we find, we're going to try to make it fit with that bias. And so is the media, and so are people talking about this. Now, the people who are talking about this are very specific people. Again, I mentioned this man because after he left this research position, he got obsessed. That's my words. I'm saying he got kind of obsessed with UFOs and ufology. he started associating himself with another person who, oddly enough, got very obsessed with UFOs and ufology, Tom DeLonge of Blink-182. They started an organization themselves surrounding and researching UFO, paranormal, that kind of thing. Everyone associated with this research organization has some skin in the game when it comes to proving that aliens exist. Okay? So these people giving this information to us, to the media, from their work in the government, already obviously have a bias. Now, again, that does not mean that they are wrong. It's just something that we have to notice. And when I say bias, I am making a claim here, but the people who really hang on to these videos and these still images and want it to be aliens and go on the news and say, isn't this weird? I don't know what this is, blah, 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 blah. These people get paid money to go around the country and around the world to talk at conventions like this. I personally have been to a few of these, and these people are very invested in aliens existing. It makes up parts of their personality, makes up their social group, it makes up what they do in their free time. This belief is very important as a social structure to these people, and these people, like this guy, get paid to go talk to these people. So now there's a social and economic investment in leaning into a UFO/alien bias. Okay? Again, doesn't mean anybody is wrong, but it does mean that if there is better evidence or better explanations for what these pilots in this footage specifically may have seen, if there's a better explanation for this kind of weird moving, weird shaped thing, then it behooves us to consider that more valid than the people who have an economic and social incentive to want it to be something else, right? That doesn't require that evidence. Okay? So, what, Kyle, these are trained Navy pilots. Then people on aircraft carriers started reporting seeing these things almost every day, and the government didn't tell us about it. I know. But, again, what is the most likely explanation for this? So if you go back, and I think this footage was taken in 2004, infrared cameras, they started seeing weird things. People in the Navy, specifically in this footage, they started seeing weird things the same week that they replaced all the infrared cameras. I just want to throw that out there for 1 second. That they started noticing weird aberrations in their footage and weird objects in their footage right after they replaced the cameras, but before they calibrated them. Okay. Now, once they started noticing these weird things, you see how these things move, right? You see how these things stay almost in an otherworldly way exactly in the center of this camera. Whatever's taking this footage, it is being tracked, or it looks like it's being tracked. So there are two explanations for this. Either the camera is really, really good at tracking whatever this is perfectly, which is possible, or this is an artifact to do with the camera itself, such that anywhere you look, this thing is going to move. And why I think that's important to notice is that if this is a problem with a camera, then if you're assuming something is like 10 miles away, and you do this with your camera and you just move it a small amount, projected out 10 miles, it's going to look like something 10 miles away is moving instantaneously with an acceleration that would kill any human being or destroy any aircraft. Again, one explanation is that it is doing that, but another explanation is that there's something to do with the camera, and when you're flicking around this object, in reality, you're just moving around the camera itself. Okay, that's another thing to notice. The last and best piece of evidence against the alien hypothesis is that when you're looking at when you're using an infrared camera your brain is not going to immediately recognize what everything looks like in infrared. You don't see in infrared. Infrared radiation being invisible. It's not in the visible light spectrum. It's heat. It's heat radiating out. So if I suddenly put infrared goggles on you, the world would look very weird. You've seen infrared cameras, right? It's not immediately, you don't have an immediate concept of what the world now looks like now that you're seeing heat. So just immediately seeing a weird dot in the sky doesn't mean it's an alien spacecraft. It could mean there's something hot in the sky that you're not used to seeing, because you usually don't see in infrared. But Kyle, these are Navy pilots who use these cameras all the time. Okay, fine. One last poke and prod here at this. Now, if everything that I'm saying is true, everything that I'm saying is more likely, if that's the case, then this would be some sort of aberration with the camera of a point source of heat that moved weird when the camera moved weird. Now, wouldn't that be interesting if we had an exact comparison of what it looked like in infrared when another fighter jet was moving around and the camera was also moving around in infrared? Oh, that would be weird, huh? Oh. On the right, you have the purported, or what a lot of ufologists like to purport as evidence of a weirdly shaped object moving super fast, stealthy, all that kind of thing. On the far left, you have infrared glare. You have glare like you would get from visible light, but you're getting it from heat because of the camera and because of a point source of heat. In the center, you have the jets of a fighter rotating, because these cameras often, they don't just track up and down, they can also rotate on an axis. So if you combine a very, very common visual artifact, which would be infrared glare, this would be like seeing a J.J. Abrams lens flare, but with heat. So you get a little infrared glare, you have a camera that's rotating. Now, again, I ask those who make a living going around telling people in convention centers in Las Vegas that aliens exist. I ask you, what is more likely? That a few people suddenly saw alien aircraft for the first time, almost out of nowhere, that move faster than anything that we know is possible, that would kill any organic, that would destroy a spacecraft. What's more likely? That, or pilots are seeing with brand new cameras an artifact that when the camera moves, it looks weird. Even if you believe this is aliens, which it's not, high likelihood that it's not. Even if you disagree with me, you must admit that this is a good explanation. It's a better explanation. Now, even though the chances of alien life being somewhere out in the universe are quite high because of just how many stars, how many planets are out there, billions and billions, there's been no good evidence that they've visited us. And if your best evidence is a weird moving blob, or your good evidence is a weird moving blob, and that can be reproduced by something we know is an issue already with cameras like this, then our bar of evidence should be so much higher than this, right? Shouldn't it? Could that be a thing moving at 15,000 miles per hour down near the ocean and go up into the sky and into space faster than you're looking at? Yes, it could. But in the light of evidence like this, if you take the fact that some of these things move weird because the camera zooms in and out and you're not noticing it, it's not a newsworthy explanation, but some of the best explanations are often quite mundane. And those are the ones that we don't think about, because when you pre-frame a conversation that you want it to be aliens, you don't think about the mundane because it's not as fun. And I get that. But when this recirculates once every few years, remember our chain of reasoning here. Remember evidence like this, and remember that these people are incentivized to make you think otherwise. That felt pretty good. Derry Dobby with a 50 says, Navy vet here. UFO is the academically correct term. Practically, it's almost always a sensor glitch or visual pareidolia. Pareidolia is when you're looking, when you're seeing an object appear out of noise, like you see a face on a tree or tree bark or something like that. That's pareidolia. Practically, it's almost always a sensor glitch. This is from a Navy veteran. Science communication still needs to get better on distinguishing that nuance. Thoughts on visual pareidolia. Pareidolia is a very, very common visual. It's part of our visual processing systems. Why do you see faces in everything? Well, it's because your brain is primed to see faces. We evolved as social creatures, and so if you could see a face or you could see eyes, your brain will apply that model to the world. That's why it's so easy to make something look like a face. And so visual pareidolia, again, it's not even some guy, talking to a depressing room of ufologists in a convention center in Vegas. It's your brain pre-framing and biasing you to see faces, to want things to move in a weird way or to be aliens, when there's better, less sexy, but better explanations. Elizabeth with the 50 says, sorry, we're late. Up pool for summer with lots of help. Tiny human question of the week. Why are things made of atoms and molecules? I don't know. Why? So that things are made of atoms and molecules is a fact you can learn about the universe, but why they are made of atoms and molecules, don't know. That's something that takes investigating. Agent of Flamingo with the 10 says, my issue is the scientific community has a bias that anyone investigating beyond scientific consensus is a commercial hacker loon. Any evidence discovered is automatically dismissed out of hand. Now you say that, but you notice that I gave everything that I was saying the benefit of the doubt, and it's not dismissive. I want to be very clear about this. It's not dismissive to ask for to jump over a bar of evidence, right? When you have scientists who work their entire lives very hard researching very, very complicated things, and then you have hundreds of years worth of experiments and mathematics and institutions, legendary genius people establishing some sort of theory or consensus around something in the universe, it's a slap in the face when someone comes along and be like, well, all that's nonsense. Why don't you think about my idea that I came up with late at night? It's not dismissive to want people to give you evidence that is worthy of research. And for the most part, well, in all parts, there's no real good UFO evidence that requires the kind of research that running a particle accelerator would. There just isn't. People don't, or scientists, academics, don't take these ideas and these theories seriously because, again, it could be... a better explanation is just a glare on a lens of a new camera, or a bug, or a speck of dust. Scientists spend their entire lives, a lot of years, a lot of money, investigating things that are interesting to them. I do not fault academia for not being interested in bad evidence. You would ask for the same thing. If you had anything personally on the line when it came to researching, you would want a bar of evidence. If you started looking into a question that you thought could make or break your career, a legendary discovery, you would want to be pretty sure you're heading in the right direction. And how would you be sure you're heading in the right direction? You apply the scientific method. And if it doesn't pass that bar, you're probably not going to research it. It's not that there's a ton of evidence that scientists are ignoring. It's that all that evidence is really bad. Like, all the evidence for UFOs right now is like taking a test and then leaving the units off. You know. It's like, okay, for question 1, you answered 20. 20 what? Why? It's 20. Obviously, you can see that it's 20, right? 20 what? How'd you get this? Where are you? Why are you in this classroom? Feral Beast with the 25. Kyle, obviously an alien, is trying to convince us it's not actually him in these videos. We know it's the truth. Ed Bangor, welcome back, Ed. Formal naval officer here. Although I've seen some artifacts on ships' IR cameras, nothing ever looked quite like that. Also, some UAPs have had radar returns, which complicates the debunking. Yes, I agree. So, those videos in particular are more compelling than a lot of other IR artifacts that you may have seen during your service, and thank you for your service. But being a naval officer, you probably know that, again, it's still more likely that it's an IR artifact than it is an alien spacecraft that accelerates at 10,000 G, right? Like, you would say that. You wouldn't report to your CO, your XO, and say, that was an alien, you know. Or maybe you would. I don't know, Ed. I'm not biased. I'm not wearing a shirt. Rickathunda with a 20. Ooh, we'll get to, hey, Kyle, love the show. Thank you. Got my kid into science with your videos. Just wanted to support. Have to go back to work. Rickathunda, thank you so much. The next generation is who we have to prop up and support and teach the barriers to entry and the levels of evidence they must strive to change the world. Dragon D Power, the 50, says, hey, Kyle, love the show. What do you think alien life would look like if carbon-based life is your guideline? Also, what video game do you think got closest to your answer? I like all the different species in Mass Effect. I think they're creative, and they're creative with how they speak and how they interact together. But how an organism will look will really depend on the environmental pressures. So it'd be easier to stipulate like a planet and some geography and some environmental or biological niche first before you you speculate on what the creature might look like. Exobiology, in those kind of terms, you know, if like it'd be much more likely to have whale-like or air balloon-like creatures on a planet that had a massively dense atmosphere where things could just like float around, right? So you need interesting pressures like that. Reed K with the 99.99. What was the motivation for the government being so hush-hush about these videos? Were they worried? Were they worried that the camera glare could be exploited by enemies? See, that's the thing. That's the other framing issue here, is that the government wasn't quote-unquote worried. It's just that they had a lot of reports that were unclassified, and then they were leaked. They weren't even classified. It's not that they were scared. You know, I mean, do you know how many videos the government must have about everything? I mean, it's not that they're worried, it's that nobody ever asked before. And there is, and we'll get into this in this week's episode of The Facility, releasing information with a possibly mis- or disinformation frame can be what's considered an info hazard. So there is something to consider there. Reed K coming in again, hot. Also just want to say that your video on ASD was very inspirational, and you've really served as a role model for myself and others in the autism community. Thank you so much, Reed. More news to come on that, but we'll be getting more involved in charities and organizations and doing our best to do our best soon. Audrey Lynn with a 10 says, psychological researcher here. I'm studying alexithymia. Never said that before. Alexithymia. And sometimes I come across research on pareidolia while I work. Looks like I tuned in just in time to hear about a fascination of mine. I like how many former Navy officers are in chat right now. And again, recognizing things as moving weird or seeing some signal in the noise is a human thing, right? That's all I have to say about that. Elizabeth with the 10 says, trying to explain to my tiny human that we can't move the pool after it's filled. How much does approximately 600 gallons of water weigh? A lot. 1 cubic foot of water weighs 64 pounds. I believe the density of water is 62.4? Sure. The density of water in imperial units is 62.4 pounds per cubic foot. A gallon is not a cubic foot. I'm going to say like 3 or 4 gallons fits in a cubic foot. I don't know off the top of my head. So divide 600 by 3, or let's do, do 3. So it's 200 cubic feet, and then you're multiplying that by 64. So you're talking about like 1,200 pounds, or an imperial ton. That is a lot. So that's why you can't move. Your mom can't move your pool, Alex. It's because it weighs over 1,000 pounds. Goodness gracious. Danielle with the 20 says, hey Kyle, love the show. Just want to say thanks for always keeping it interesting. It's people are putting in the chat. It's 4,000 pounds? Why was I so off? There's more gallons in a cubic foot, isn't there? There's more gallon. Am I right? 5,000. 8.8 pounds per gallon. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, I was a little off with the estimation there. Yeah, so almost 5,000 pounds, tiny human. That is a lot. Look, I did that off the top of my head. So, I said over 1,000 pounds, which means I came within a factor of 3 of the answer, because I've taught myself how to estimate nearly anything. And that will be an upcoming episode of the facility, how to estimate anything. Did I just give stuff away? I don't know. Peer review. So, as I'm wont to do on each episode of Office Hours, I take some of your comments, questions, and corrections from the latest episode of the facility, and I highlight them. And lately, I've just been scrolling. Is it because I'm lazy? No. Is it because I'm trying to fill time? No. Okay. So in the latest episode of the facility, we talked about anti-telephones, how to call the past, as a thought experiment that Einstein had using some intricacies of relativity. That's not an accent. Anywho. Robin Pointy says, we don't have any more super nerds? No, that's trademarked. It's not, but I don't want to. Anyway, so on the latest episode of the facility, talking about anti-telephones, some of your comments, questions, and corrections. Hey, Kyle, don't sell yourself short. You're Macy's brand, Jason Momoa. No, I'm a big garbage fire. Iva says, I didn't know how much I missed Kyle drawing diagrams until he drew one. You gotta change the format. John White says, Kevin's are Kyle's clones. The name stands for Kyle Exact Vessel in case needed. If he dies, a copy of his consciousness is downloaded to a random Kevin, who then becomes Kyle, and that's why ARIA has consciousness. It's a copy of Kyle's. Yeah, it's a guy named John White. Yeah? No, I'm thinking, Razorbacked armadillos. Yeah, they can get right underneath the carpet in his home, and then he'll step on one. Yeah, I guess that won't silence him, but that is a better idea. Giraffes that drop trapezoidal weights. It's brilliant. Okay, get it done. Thanks. Awesome comment, James. I can't... Sure. You know what? You know what? Because I'm probably going to not drop a trapezoidal weight on your head, John White, I'm going to make you this week's honorary member of the facility. And now you... Oh, and that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Kevin, you got the plaque, right? That's not a plaque. That's a certified... It's a sheet certifying that we have some uranium ore here. That's not... You have how much of it? Hi, it's your boy Kyle Hill. I know you still might not believe me about the whole alien thing and it just being glare on a new camera that's turning, but the next time you see some stingray-shaped object moving through the sky weird on your fancy Navy camera, just remember that it could be totally explained by the thing on the right. Same shape, same movement. Oh, and it's from something we totally already know about? Crazy how that happens sometimes. We have Superfly Johnson with a 50. Says, Kyle, definitely not a mild-mannered Dr. Evil. Hill... Oh, I was just fixing something. If you could add a new organ to your body with a completely new function, what would you want? I would want to... I want super, super sharp nails. Like Mohs hardness scale 10 nails that are so sharp they could cut glass. Why? Because I want to see what art I can steal, Batman. I might be losing my mind a little bit today. Cheech Olo with a 30.99 as usual. Good day, Kyle. Question about echolocation. That's not Australian. If sound travels outward in waves, does that mean that animals that echolocate see all around themselves? Pretty trippy. Can humans do this, or is Daredevil just BS? Cheers, you legend. The thing about echolocation is that it's not a... To see... What you're saying is, like, can a bat or a dolphin or something like that see all around them at once? And I'm going to say no. Just like... So, think of how your visual system works, you legend. I'm trying to make sure my beard is in. Think about how your visual system works, right? Some amount of information is coming into your passive receptacles. And based off that information, this visible light information, your brain interprets those electrical signals, but it can only interpret the information that it's getting, right? You're not getting stimulus from behind you. Nothing is hitting your retina. And similarly, your sense organ, if you're echolocating, is only going to be getting information that's hitting it directly. And I don't think echolocating organs are like omnidirectional. They're more like an eye for sound. So a dolphin will focus sound waves out of it in a I think it's called a melon inside of its head, and it's squishy, and it sends out high pitch, high frequency sound, and that sound bounces off of an object or doesn't, and when it interacts with that object, it becomes rich with data. So the dolphin's brain knows what the sound is like coming out. When it comes back, that sound wave will have changed. The time it takes to come back, the reflection time will tell how far it is away, changes in amplitude and frequency could tell shape and texture and these kinds of things and movement. but it has to be received back by the melon and the organ and stuff. If the dolphin set out a sound like that, and then turned around and it hit its tail, it's not going to see behind it, right? I think that's kind of getting at what your question is, right? William Bauer at the 10 says, "Hey Kyle, love the show. Do you think if an advanced extraterrestrial civilization were to come to Earth, that the people of Earth would be treated in the same way colonials treated Native Americans?" I have no idea. You've seen District 9 too many times. Tim Brown says, "What about barn owl or white owls with the dish face?" Well, the dish face isn't... barn owls are one of my favorite animals. I like symmetry. Barn owls are one of my favorite animals, and if you look at them, they have a dish-shaped face. That isn't to act as a full receptacle. What I mean is that behind its face isn't a giant tympanic membrane or eardrum. Rather, it helps funnel sound waves to the ears. So it's really good at listening. It's like having bigger ears. And see the inside of your ears? This shape is evolved to also help funnel sound into and vibrate your tympanic membrane, and that's what the bird's face is doing. It wouldn't have this giant sensory perception unless it was a giant membrane behind that. But Kyle, what if you make the membrane super big, or an animal had a big... Now you're just describing a radar dish, right? So you see where that's going. Robert D. Wilson here. Hello, Professor. Ravdos says, "What are you doing with the beard?" It's based on how I like this. Oh. The disinformation doesn't. Now, if you know me, you know that I think social media is a net negative. I think it was created with an incentive structure that does not work well with how our brains process information, with how society communicates with each other. I think social media is ripping apart the fabric of society, literally. I think it's bad. I think it needs to be rebuilt, or at the very least, heavily, heavily regulated. Now, when I say that, some of you might think, Kyle, that's crazy. Why is it so bad? How is it any worse than going on TV or writing a book or anything like that? And to me, the problem here with social media as an information delivery system is that it's like bringing a gun to a knife fight, or a minigun to a handgun fight. Yes, there are many ways to transmit information, but social media uniquely can transmit more information to more people more quickly than anything else on the planet. In theory, a single person could tweet something and be seen by hundreds of millions of people instantaneously. That kind of power is something that humans have never had before, and it gives the ability for individuals who may not know what they're talking about or might have ill intent or bad faith. It gives individuals the ability to misinform and mislead a grand number of people. Enter the disinformation doesn't. So this comes from a recent study by the Center for Countering Digital Hate. And what they were doing was looking into where anti-vaccination information comes from. And if you've been following me on Twitter, it's kind of ironic that I say that. You know, I've been arguing with a lot of people about vaccine information, anti-vaccine information. There's a couple of memes going out there right now that, the COVID vaccine is changing your DNA. No, it doesn't. It doesn't get anywhere near your DNA. It uses mRNA to tell organelles inside of your cell to make the proteins that your immune system can recognize, and then that mRNA is destroyed by your cells afterwards. Nothing is being rewritten on your DNA. It doesn't even get inside the nucleus of your cells. So a lot of memes like that going around. But you see how much more effort it takes me to counter a very simple bit of misinformation. We've known, in communication research for a long time that misinformation spreads like wildfire. In fact, it spreads faster than literal wildfire. It spreads unlike anything else. And it's very, very hard to counter. Debunking works in some cases, but once something is out there, it's almost impossible to stop. So there's been a lot of memes going around about COVID vaccines, and it represents a huge public health problem. If you have people who are telling the public that something is wrong or that something is dangerous, it will literally translate into lives lost or lives saved at the end of the day. Now, I'm bringing up this study, and I'm going on this rant about social media because I want to show you how bad this can get. Because I don't think you believe me. So, looking into this study, which I can show you here, looking into this study, they sampled a lot of Facebook posts, Twitter posts, and keep in mind that you don't have to survey every single tweet, every single Facebook post that exists to get a general idea. It's the same reason why you don't have to poll every person in America when you're doing exit polling or polling for president or something like that, because statistically, if you have a good representative sample, then it can generalize out. So look at this right here. Analysis of anti-vaccine content posted to Facebook over 600,000 times in the last 2 months shows that up to 73% of that content originates with members of the disinformation dozen. There was also, here we go. An analysis of sample anti-vaccine content that was shared or posted on Facebook and Twitter, a total of 800,000 times between February and March 2021, shows that 65% of anti-vax content is attributable to the disinformation dozen. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about these people. These people here. Here's a list of their names. A quick survey of the information ecosystem that we occupy now shows that the vast majority of bad information about vaccines comes from 12 people. Total. This is what I mean by bringing a gun to a knife fight. When you have an entire public health apparatus and doctors and scientists trying to get this pandemic under control, and you have a information delivery system that will allow 12 people, 12, to dominate a misinformation-based conversation, something must be wrong. These are bad people. Many of them knowingly push these ideas. They sell things on their websites. They write books. They are frauds. And they do a danger. They're dangerous people to society because they have an immense power because of social media to influence people. And indeed, that's what we see. So what do we do? Well, what the study, responsible for 65% of content, 73% of Facebook's content. Some of these people, Joseph Mercola in particular, Riza Aslan, I believe his name is, this fraud. Riza Islam, my bad. Riza Islam, number 5 here, are even using their social media platforms to target the people who are at risk the most from COVID, like communities of color, where they post things that are racially charged on purpose. So what do we do? Well, the study recommends a couple of things. display corrective posts to people exposed to disinformation. Twitter has started doing this. Facebook has started doing this. Add warning screens when users click links to known misinformation websites. Ban private and secret anti-vaccine Facebook groups where these people congregate. And at the very least, deplatform these people. And I do not want to hear one thing about cancel culture in this regard. That's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different conversation about saying and doing things. When I recommend, when the study recommends deplatforming these people, well, aren't they entitled to? No. On private platforms, no, they're not. We could do this tomorrow. These people represent a grand and dangerous obstacle to public health. These people are killing people with what they say and what they do with the most easily weaponized information system in human history. It wouldn't be... I wouldn't be infringing on your First Amendment rights if you ran into every theater in the country. If you were able to somehow tap into every theater in the country and play the words fire over the speaker system, if you were able to do that, I would not be infringing on your First Amendment rights to kick you off of that system that lets you do that, right? You pose a clear and present danger. You can cause a lot of harm. People could die because of what you're doing. This is no different. What these people are doing with anti-vaccine mis- and disinformation is yelling fire in a crowded everywhere. Because everyone has these platforms, because everyone is on social media, or at least it seems like it. These people are a clear and present danger that should be removed and ridiculed and possibly prosecuted. But I'm not going to do that. I don't know how lawyers work. Got kind of angry. It's okay. It's okay. Kyle Trevino with the 23, simping for science. Oh, good. I could use that. I could use that. I'm a little worked up. Paul ZCY with his check 200. It's 9.62 US dollars. Thank you for including that. Critical thinking when reading these posts. Okay. Oh, wait. Critical thinking when reading these posts. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me to read the super chats before I say them out loud, because last week I had to edit something out. Because some idiot Andy Keene with the 10 says, nice segment. It's a sad reality. Lemony Pie says, can we just apply Newton's flaming laser sword? You okay? Do you smell toast? Michael says, you would prosecute these people for what, comrade? Well, it's fun, and it's easy to make a comparison to something like a fascist regime or a communist regime or Soviet Russia. That's easy. And that's too simple for you. You're smarter than that. You would prosecute someone for saying something that could lead to public health harm or incite violence. I mean, you see people being prosecuted for much less. What I'm saying is, because it's easily identifiable that these people can cause broad public health disasters, that them continuing to do that represents enough of a harm that I think they could be, yeah, easily. Feels like I didn't know where I was going with that, but that's because I am really tired. Causing public harm. That's what they're doing. I don't know if you can. The easier option. I don't know if there's an existing law to do that kind of thing with speech. Is there, Kevin? We don't know. But what I'm getting at is that this is the level of the issue here to me. They're causing real harm, not fake harm. Pin what in the notes? Oh, can you share a source for the paper? Yes, I'll put the paper in the comments after we get to it. Anko Kuravan says, Administrator, I have 2 Kevins on floor 871, both designated Kevin 1680. Is this a production oversight or a problem? Also, how did I get into the facility? What am I saying? All right, Kevin. Oh, all right, 3 Kevin. Oh, jeez. Yeah. No, it's me. Mm-hmm. There's been another duplication issue. Well, I don't know. They both have pens in their lab coats. Just have them fight to the death real quick. Yeah. No, we have mop bots for that. Oh, I didn't tell you they're like big Roombas, but they're wet. Bye. Oh. Where am I? What's happening? DeBoy Max, hello from Manitoba, Canada. Long time watched. Enjoy your videos. Thank you so much. Derek Richardson says, intentional misinformation when it comes to health and safety should be akin to assault. Is there I sound dumb, but again, I don't know law. Is there? If someone was to run into a theater and yell fire and someone got trampled to death, there's got to be a way to prosecute that, right? I'm likening that to using social media to tell millions of people not to get vaccinated. That is tangible harm. So, how do you do that? I don't know. I'm just saying we should think about it. I don't want to sound like I'm getting crazy here. What I mean is that there should be at least some consequence for sharing mis and disinformation on the level that can affect millions of people. That's just common sense to me. Brian Schmidt says, pro tip, when it's this busy, Kyle seems to only get to the $10 super chat. It's not a criticism of Kyle. He's just that busy. Oh, yeah? What am I doing right now? Oh, yeah? Terasat says, get in touch with Legal Eagle. Huh. Legal Eagle? Should be a collab with Legal. Okay. Jeez. Doesn't that mean I'll have to wear a suit and be handsome? I can't do both. I can either wear a suit or be handsome. Not both. It's impossible. Sal Carrera with the 5 says, what do you think about the 60 Minutes episode about the Navy UFO sightings? We went through that in the first part of the show. It will be available on the channel after this is live. But, hey, let me just get let me just ban this person. I wield so much power. Oh, yeah, we talked about that. But in my mind, despite Navy pilots being very experienced, intelligent people, I assume, the better explanation is something is weird or was weird or has been weird with cameras and fully explainable phenomena. That's a lot more likely than suddenly witnessing aircraft that could move unlike anything we've ever experienced before in this universe. It seems very unlikely. Especially if these pilots and some of the people reportedly were seeing these artifacts like every single day. If you're seeing them, if there's that many sightings, it seems like again, more of a systematic issue with what you're looking at these things with, rather than sightings that should be more widely reported. It's the same thing with Bigfoot. So when there's too many sightings of Bigfoot, and too many well, in this case with the pilots, but in the case of Bigfoot, too many sightings of Bigfoot can start to work against the case for him actually existing, because now Bigfoot is now supposed to be on every continent, and there's going to be dozens of them or hundreds of them, and there's been so many sightings of Bigfoot that the sightings or reported sightings evaluated against the actual evidence, tangible evidence, makes it very unlikely that there's a large ape running around. You see what I'm getting at? It seems like there's something else that's causing or explaining the sightings, because it doesn't seem to track with the evidence. The more sightings you get, the more tangible evidence you should have, but that's not the case. It's the same thing with aliens or UFO sightings, alien abductions, those kind of things. When it's the day and age where everybody has a supercomputer with a great camera in their pocket, there should be a lot more good evidence of UFOs and aliens. But instead, what we see, and you can look up graphs of this, instead what we see is that as phone and camera technology has gotten better, the number of sightings has decreased. It's almost like when you couldn't capture evidence, a lot of people saw a lot of weird stuff. And then people started actually looking at it with cameras and stuff like, oh, no, never mind. You know. Sexy Unicorn with the 5 says, do UFOs smell like peanuts? And with that, thank you so much. You ruined the stream, and now we're going to end. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Office Hours. I hope you've been having a wonderful week. We did our first Twitch gameplay live stream, which we're working on putting a highlight up here on the channel. If you haven't watched that, go and watch it. We have a full hour-long interview with Jennifer Hale. You have gameplay footage with me and Sciencey talking stuff about Mass Effect Legendary Edition. This week on the facility, we'll be talking about information hazards. Ooh. And that's it. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Remember, it's okay for you to demand good evidence. It's not dismissive. And what I wouldn't ever dismiss is Music Central Piano, as usual, with a $50 donation, always at the end here. Keep up the great work, Kyle. Completely agree with the social media take. I'm not on any form of it, but it needs serious revamping. Memes plus important subject matter equals a general failure to understand the concepts. Anyway, stay safe, stay rational. All of you, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and be nice to each other, because this is all we got. Yeah, get my spaceship ready. No, it moves so fast, they'll never be able to track it with cameras. Ah!